on the side that turns it on, and if the green light is glowing, it's on.
Okay, good to know.
And if it starts to die, plug it in.
Okay, got it.
This is high tech.
Totally, all about that.
We're so high tech.
Fancy, fancy.
Oh, I also have like an entire cadre of batteries for the weekend.
Oh, excellent.
Like
Thank you.
a wad.
A wad.
I think only got like 10.
Wad o batteries.
10 batteries.
Okay. Well, yeah, of course it failed. Stop it. Sorry. I have to now talk to the computer. Okay.
Hello, computer.
No computer. Welcome.
Lord. Everybody, so Charity, would you start by introducing yourself and just telling us who the fuck you are and why the fuck you're on this vampire fucking panel tonight?
Right on.
So I'm Charity, also known as Anti-Histamine, because I am allergic to everything, so I made it my whole damn personality. I am on this panel because they invited me, because I have seen every movie. All of them.
That's true.
She's not exaggerating.
And she has seen none of them unless I've made her. It's funny.
Or doing research for this panel. I watched several.
Yeah. All around nerd who has seen everything and who has immersed themselves in pop culture to a point that is obscene.
Yes.
You know, like you.
As you do.
Yeah.
Normal stuff.
I am Evie, also known as the Lemon Pirate. I'm an airship pirate. Commodore. I was given a promotion. Used to be captain. I'm now the Commodore. That's how it goes. I'm just a nerd.
You're never just a nerd.
I'm a nerd who's been a costumer and done stuff for movies and things like that. Don't watch the movies, just make costumes for them, as one does. I've been hanging out with some of these freaks for a couple of years. She was my best bitch. Madame Askew was my best bitch at my wedding. I married this one. So there's that. And I'm really glad to be here because I really need to be around my people.
It's going. It's live. It's good to go. It's on.
Okay. So it's not like.
No, it's just for the.
Okay.
For the thing.
Hi.
And that means you, Evie, and
Sorry.
Charity are supposed to share that microphone.
Okay,
Yes.
one down here. Yeah, we have to pick it up and speak into it.
My name is Ashley. This is my second year at TestCon. And the reason I'm on this panel is because I was always a spooky kid. I love vampires, but I don't like scary things. So.
Hi, my name is Tanya, and this is my 8th TestCon. And I just thought it'd be really fun to talk about vampires because I've also always been a weird girl who liked the spooky stuff. And yeah, I'm glad you're here so we can talk about all kinds of vampire shit.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi, I'm Madame Askew, and some of you may know me from my work serving tea, serving cunt, and serving a good time.
That's our girl. That's our girl.
I am super happy to be on this 18 plus panel. It is 18 plus, otherwise I would not be saying some of the words I'm going to be saying tonight. And I have also always been the spooky kid. I went with my grandmother twice a year to go clean and decorate family graves. And I just thought that was normal. And my grandmother encouraged it. And she told me that, not in these exact words, she said, bitch, wear black until you're old. Pastels are for old people. Black is for young people. And I live that motto. So, and now we're going to talk about what the fuck we are even talking about when it comes to vampires. Tanya, would you like to give us a little sort of nutshell of the panel tonight?
Sure. You go. New iteration of vampire.
There's a lot on this outline. We took a lot of notes.
We did.
So basically, we started to talk about vampires because we are a bunch of spooky bitches. And it's like, we started thinking about it. It's like everybody kind of comes, if you find out that you kind of like, there's so many vampires, there's so much media. It's like from Nosferatu back in, I can't even remember when it was released, even though I looked it up.
In the 1920s.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
All the way like up to now, there's been so many iterations, so many like jumping on points, so to speak, for people to like discover vampire media. And so then we just started thinking, well, let's talk about this a little bit, because it's like, you know, there's kind of been evolution of vampires and their portrayal throughout. Like for a while, it's just like, well, you've got like scary and creepy and very inhuman looking, like Count Orlok from Nosferatu. And then, you know, a little way like down the road, you get even it was written before this, but then there was like Dracula, which the movie portrayals made him just like this, like handsome and mysterious, and
Still gruesome.
yes, still gruesome,
Yes.
but also kind of hot. And so then it's like, then you get, I think, and it feels kind of like for a lot of people, especially like Gen X folk, it feels like our gateway vampires were Anne Rice.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of heads nodding. So like, hello, you are our people.
Hello.
But it's like, you know, there's Nosferatu, there's Twilight, everything in between. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's very fashionable to hate on Twilight, but it's still like, it's fun. They're fun stories. And they introduce people to vampires. And it got, of course. There was a lot of vampire, like that could be its whole other panel.
Yeah.
Like problematic vampires.
Ooh, next year's panel.
Hey!
Yeah.
And they got people reading books, which meant they found more vampires.
Yes.
And there's just all kinds of different types of vampire stories. Like you've got like from scary to funny. There's romance. They're all over the place. And they're also kind of gay. Because there was a story, I believe Carmilla was written before Dracula.
By a lot.
And it is very sapphic. And then within the
Sexy
last
lesbian ladies.
couple of years, there's an author named S.D. Simper that did a retelling of the book called Carmilla and Laura, where she made the subtext very text.
That subtle thing, not for me.
Yeah, it's very
Do you like pen pepper spicy?
not really. It's
No?
still kind of she still keeps to the vibe of like the way the original was
It's
written.
fade to black, but it's definitely it's there.
There's some spice happening. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
You're trapped
Oh,
with
now
all
it's
of us.
almost midnight.
Vampire.
Oh.
and now he's like, shit, I can't get the door open.
Because there's no doorknob. So somebody went open the door. And this is how you will join our cult.
Yeah. Yay! Welcome to the cult of vampire.
Yeah.
We don't drink Kool-Aid, we drink tea
So,
and blood.
so Tanya, you are our guide to the gateway vampire experience, because we've broken the panel down because we want to talk about all the motherfucking vampires, okay? But
So
there's
many
not time to actually talk about all of them because there's so many vampires. But we've broken it down into categories. And so Tanya is going to take us on a little tour on those famous gateway vampires, the ones who get us all hooked on the bloodsuckers.
Yeah. Well, I like a little bit, like my kind of introduction to vampires really was whenever I talked one of my English teachers into letting me read it. Because she told us we had to we had to pick a classic. So I argued that it was published, like whenever it was published, the author is dead. It's considered a classic. Look, it was published by this imprint that says such and such classic. And she was like, fine, read it. And it was great. And then I had a writing mentorship in high school, and she's like, have you ever read Anne Rice? And I said, no, I have not. She's like, you should read Interview with a Vampire. And I did. And I am hooked. And so like, then it's like, it kind of seems like depending on when you were growing up, what you were exposed to, what kind of like your sort of gateway vampires were. Because obviously, like we mentioned Twilight, that got huge. Like I like, and just was kind of amazed to see how much Twilight blew up. But, you know, it's fun, you know?
It got a lot of kids hooked on vampires.
Right.
And the total goth vibe.
Yeah.
Great
but with
soundtrack.
glitter.
Yes. Glitter goths.
Glitter goths.
And they are great soundtracks for the movies.
Oh my god, the soundtracks are so much better than they have any right to be.
Oh, yeah,
the
they
soundtracks for
are.
every single one of those movies are
Right.
so good.
It's just a banger from end to end.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, you had for like I can't remember in bookstores if they get shelved in mystery or if they get shelved in romance. There was the Sookie Stackhouse stories, and which of course inspired True Blood, which is a whole other thing.
They are wildly different. They are
Oh,
not
yeah.
the same. They are different.
Yeah,
Sookie Stackhouse and True Blood are separate.
The author likes to say that she writes her books and Mr. Alan Ball writes his TV show.
And she gets a big paycheck.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
You know, I'm down with that.
She's very sanguine,
Yeah.
but to the author's
And there's like there was some other really good movies like in the 80s, like The Hunger, which I actually have not really seen. So
I can't wait to make you watch it at 2 a.m.
I have a tablet and a bottle of wine in my room. Let's go.
and then of course there was The Lost Boys.
Classic.
Kiefer Sutherland telling like, come on, Michael, you'll never get old. And it's
And
yes,
both
and the
Coreys.
Coreys,
Both of them.
the Frog Brothers.
Man.
And then, of course, the 90s with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Classic.
Yes. And like, it's funny because I remember watching the movie and then I was like, why don't I watch a show about this? And then some people I deeply respect were like, no, you should watch this. And I
I
did.
just watched it again for the second time last night.
So I
It's
had
so good.
I had an English professor at university who was like obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, in the 90s, because that is my era. And I was like, well, the English professor likes it. I mean, the movie had its charms, but like,
Like the most epic death scene
I
ever.
mean, listen, honestly, the death scene is everything in that movie. But when the English professor was like, you need to check out Buffy, I was like, hook me up. And you're our Buffy expert at this table, I think.
I mean, I guess.
Don't be bashful. Don't be
Come
humble.
on,
You are.
Donna.
I've watched a lot of Buffy. I've listened to a Buffy rewatch podcast
Oh, but
extensively.
that's so good.
Buffering.
Buffering, it's great.
Yeah. If you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I highly recommend it's called Buffering the Vampire Slayer because they rewatched Buffy spoiler free like all the way through, and at the end of each episode was like a little song written by Jenny Owen Youngs. And now they went through all 7 seasons. Now they've started doing a different show. And then they were like, hey, let's rewatch it with spoilers. So they can talk about all the context and everything around all the things we're seeing. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, I watched a lot of Buffy.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Our tour guide of the Gateway Vampire.
Yes.
What do you think it is about these films that it's like, is there a universal, is there something, a nugget about all of them that is similar, that is the DNA that makes them perfect as a gateway?
I think and a lot of it is because the audience has a point of view character and it's their introduction too.
Mm.
And so we feel like we can go on that ride with them to discover it, and like the allure and like the sexiness and the terror, etc.
But that character is accessible because it's more like them than a lot of fictional characters in some of the older movies. Like, okay, I'll never be Lucy. In my nightgown, I will sleep. I know, I could do it. I could pull it off. I could pull it off, people. I could make that and not feel bad.
I really kind of think that's what it is. And of course, with Buffy, you have somebody who is like kind of the gateway character, but she's also the one that's supposed to kill all the vampires. But wait, there's a hot one with a soul.
And he's so tortured and needs saving.
And he likes to, even though he's a vampire, he likes to read French poetry by the fireplace.
But everyone knows that Spike
Because-
is better. Spike, absolutely team Spike.
Hashtag problematic fave.
Yeah.
Because Spike is also tortured and very old and very hot.
And wrote bad poetry, didn't just read it.
And also
Girl.
realizes that Buffy is the goddamn slayer and she can take care of herself.
Exactly.
And he is only there to support her.
We love Spike.
Yeah.
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 Spike is great.
I think when we're talking about it's on problematic vampires, one of the main kind of components or not skills, the powers that vampires have are compelling people and things like that. So it's like they can kind of hypnotize them into doing things that they don't necessarily want to do. So I think that most vampires would be considered problematic when you look at it that way, because obviously that's not it's not great.
No.
So yeah.
Makes that consent really dodgy.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
And Ashley, you are our tour guide of the classic vampire monster,
Yes.
which gets right into that like problematic nature.
Correct.
You go, Ashley.
Thank you. Okay, so when you think of I like spooky, I don't like scary. So the classic vampires, I feel really fell into that. Like when you look at the Universal monsters, I love the Universal monsters. That is my brand of like good. So yeah, Bride of Frankenstein is love her. So when we think classic vampires, what are some things you think of when you think classic vampire? Capes. You got the red satin lined cape. Yes, they're very Eastern European sounding. They can turn into bats, explode into bats. Right. I think that's why we were very dramatic eyes, like the original Dracula Universal Monsters movie, where it's just lit right here. It's very Morticia Addams looking. I think that's why. Yeah, they have to live in a castle.
And
you
can
can't
afford the
have
heat.
right.
They don't need it so much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. I think that's why we had to wait outside, is because we weren't invited in. So that's why we all had to wait out there for the panel to let out.
Come in,
So,
join us, darling.
yes. See, you invited her just in
Yes.
case she's a vampire.
I know
so
she's
can
not,
come
though.
on in. Okay.
I'm pretty sure anyway.
Yes.
We're gonna do that.
She
anyway.
never bitten me,
No. Well.
and I got a pretty tasty neck.
So classic vampires, those are all of these things. They're like the things that little kids dress up as for Halloween, right?
Yes.
They've got the slick back hair. They're Grandpa Munster. These are the classic vampires, right? Not
Grandpa Munster was epic.
absolutely. So not necessarily scary, but definitely spooky, right? So Dracula obviously is the first one that comes to mind for a lot of people. We've got Coppola's Dracula movie from the 90s. That was a really big one that brought a lot of people in to vampires, right? It is so good. Gary Oldman, anything Gary Oldman is
Oh,
in,
he's
I'm in. If he's in, I'm in. So absolutely.
Let me hear it.
Almost.
Yes.
Almost.
I'm in.
Tiptoes is still terrible.
Okay. Granted.
So a lot of the movies that you see are just kind of reimaginings, remakings of Dracula. We've got Dracula 2000, which I love Gerard Butler, but we don't talk about that.
It's like Highlander too.
Don't go there.
It's somewhere,
No.
but we don't talk
Don't
about
go
it.
Right.
there.
You
It's
just know. So Bram Stoker's book, Bram Stoker Dracula, was released in 1897, and that was kind of the first. It wasn't the first book written, and I know that because we talked about Carmilla, but it was kind of the big one that the movies are all made after, things like that. In doing research for this panel, the kind of first charismatic, sophisticated vampire that you see that's got the suit with his red satin-lined cape, that was actually from The Vampire, written by John. Yeah, Polidori. I was trying to read my writing and I was like, I think that's what it says. So yes. And that was actually 1819. So that was written 80 years before that. That was kind of the introduction of what we see as the classic vampire. It was actually not from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yeah.
And I will say that was actually done at the very same, it was written at the very same party where Frankenstein.
Yes, yeah. I saw that too. I thought that was an interesting tie-in, is that Mary Shelley's husband, who was also a writer, was writing about vampire stuff too. I was like, oh, that's fun.
And that's Byron and his doctor, Dr. John Polidori.
Yes, yeah.
What
That's
a
awesome.
party.
I know, right? I would love
to hang out.
absolutely. So, yeah, Dracula, more Dracula. There's so much Dracula. That's kind of the name that is synonymous with vampires. Yeah.
Did you know that there was an Icelandic version of Dracula?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I know this.
So what happened was, I read about this. Bram Stoker sent this to a friend,
Mhm.
and the friend said he was in Iceland. He goes, "Hey, can I write this in Icelandic?" And he goes, "Just do whatever you want. It's fine." So he did.
He changed everything but the names of the characters, and it has nothing to do with the Dracula story.
Well,
Interesting.
I mean, it sort of does. I read it, and
Mhm.
it's like I had read Dracula, and then I read this right after. And it's basically Jonathan Harker is the star here.
Uh-huh.
And then the other second part with the women is like the Cliff Notes version. It's really
Interesting.
strange.
Was this okay? I'm assuming translated into English, unless you read Icelandic.
Yeah, it's.
I don't.
translated back to
So-
Icelandic.
It is
Oh, yeah.
the
Cool. Okay.
originator of the Sookie Stackhouse, True Blood.
Oh, fun. Yeah. So, okay. Well, I'll definitely be looking that up to read it. That sounds really good.
It's
Um,
bizarre and beautiful.
There's like this much forward and this much book.
yeah.
And I read this much forward, and I said, okay, I'm done with this forward.
Uh-huh.
I want to read the book now.
Yeah.
No, the
That's
forward
kind
is
of
so
how I
good.
felt when I
read
read.
that much, and then
Yeah. When I read the original Dracula, I was in 7th grade. So you were talking about reading the vampire book. When I was in junior high, I didn't have to take reading, but I did, because I'm like, wait, there's a class where I can just sit and read books. I am in. So one of the things that, absolutely, that was my elective, was reading. But that's when I read Bram Stoker's Dracula, was when I was in 7th grade. And it was not what I pictured, because you hear about the movies and things and you're just like, oh, it's going to be all this and that. And it's letters back and forth. And I was like, wow.
Okay, in junior
Yeah,
high school,
Mhm.
the librarian wouldn't let me take more than 8 books home on me.
Rude.
absurd.
Yes, absolutely. Hmm.
I know, right? Just, you can't read that much. Bitch, I'll be done with this on Saturday. I have a whole day left.
So Dracula is kind of the suave vampire, but we also have Nosferatu, which is also a classic vampire, but is more on the scary side, right? It's not quite getting into the sophisticated, chicness. So yeah, Nosferatu was made before that. Obviously, still got the scary, but still classic, right? And then Shadow of the Vampire. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a movie that was made about the making of the movie Nosferatu, right? And it sounds like, I haven't seen it yet. I was talking to Tanya about it before the panel. It sounds hilarious. The premise sounds really funny, but apparently it's not. So I'm like, but I'm definitely going to be checking that out after the convention. I know. I'm so excited. Right. It's Halloween year round.
better time.
Just let it kind of, take over the
longest
entire
night of the
year. So
Yes.
yes.
So also, like, speaking of Nosferatu, just as an add-on to this, there's a new arty thing going on. And of course I'm going to forget the full thing, but it's like the silent synced. And what they do is, this guy in Austin is taking some classic silent movies and syncing them up with modern music. And so I just saw the original Nosferatu synced to a bunch of Radiohead at the Loft, and it was fucking amazing. Like, of course the movie is still like very dramatic, and the plot has a lot of, I mean, an editor could probably have a conversation with the writer of that script about like maybe fleshing out some of the story and making it make sense. But when you're like vibing out to Radiohead, it's just such a good creepy time. It is really beautiful.
Yes.
All right, so if you are ready.
Yeah. The only thing I have to add, I didn't want to snatch the microphone out of your hand when you were talking about Anne Rice. That was kind of my gateway to was Anne Rice.
Oh, Anne Rice.
Yeah. And so I remember watching The Interview with the Vampire, things like that. I remember when I watched Queen of the Dam for the first time, I wanted to throw my shoe at the television. I was so upset. Like, it was just so, I was so upset. But I mean, Aaliyah as Akasha, perfect. Like, that casting was absolutely wonderful. That's what I'll say about that movie. She was great. She's great as Akasha. Yeah. She was fantastic. But yeah.
They made it into an eye candy movie.
Yes.
More than a story.
Yes.
And the soundtrack. The soundtrack.
Yeah, it was like Jonathan Davis, but mixed with other people too, to make Lestat's voice. Like, I thought that was really interesting.
A song by the Kidney Thieves. There was a song by.
No, but I mean, even to make Lestat's
Yes.
voice,
Listen to that soundtrack.
the soundtrack's good, but like even to make Lestat's voice for that movie, they ended up mixing several different voices together. I know Jonathan Davis was one because that was kind of the one that came out the most, but just the way they did that was really interesting. So yeah, I'll give up my time to someone else now.
Oh, well, so up next we have hardcore horror, and our tour guide for that is Charity.
So for the hardcore horror, a lot of people mistake the fact that it's scary for jump scares, but really most of the hardcore vampire stuff that freaks people out is kind of like zombie movies. It's not about the zombies, it's about the class wars. It's not about the scary vampires, it's the loss of control. It's a social experiment. All of the vampires in the most hardcore movies are what's terrifying in society right now. If you watch 30 Days of Night, what is the most terrifying thing about 30 Days of Night? Is it the vampires, or is it the fact that you're in the Arctic Circle freezing to death with absolutely nothing coming to back you up? Oh, and people are dying. Oh, it's vampires. It's not frostbite. Okay, cool. It cracks me up. I've seen so many horror movies. Like, we have some.
Her besties into horror movies. It makes her watch them.
So there's other things like I've avoided Salem's Lot. I've never seen it. I have never read the book because I can't stand that writing style. I just hate him. I hate him. I know I'm a blasphemer, but I hate him.
Who is the author of Salem's Lot?
Stephen King. I can't stand Stephen King.
I am not a horror reader or fan. I'm with Ashley. Like, I'm spooky girl. I can't do really scary shit though. So all apologies to Mr. King. I think he will be fine without my fandom. He seems to be
doing okay.
I think he's all right. Yeah,
He's selling a couple of books.
The scariest book I ever read was Insomnia by him. This is not about vampires, but I had to put it in the freezer. Like, I had to like literally take it and put it in the freezer because I was like, I can't even have this in existence with me right now.
Oh my gosh.
That is fair. That is fair and reasonable. I have also put books in the freezer. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
You're in timeout.
Sealed. I don't cook. There was no way I was going to go back in that freezer. I don't cook. It's a thing. I do drink the little like bottled juice things. Technically, I bought Soylent. I bought a lot of Soylent, and I needed it because it's green bottles, and I needed Soylent Green.
So,
Which leads into the vampire thing. Eating people is bad, but there is overpopulation. That's terrifying.
And the silent drinks are actually pretty decent. I'm just putting that out there, just
Are
as
they
a side.
made of people?
No, they say no.
Okay.
With
They say no in the movie too.
I know nothing. I know nothing.
with horror books, I know that you said a lot of them are not scary in and of themselves. It's kind of like a statement on something. Have you read The Strain?
Yes.
Okay, that's terrifying in and of itself. The fact that their intestines come out and sting people, like that's terrifying to me.
Yes.
And that's not a statement on anything. That's just fucking scary.
Yeah, with that.
A lot of the ones that we've been talking about in the hardcore horror, they also have a body horror component to
Yeah.
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
And the body horror is directly related to whatever beauty standards are happening right then.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, body horror is like the worst horror for me personally. Not that it's bad. It's not bad. Like objectively, it's just subjectively, it freaks me out the very most. And when I was looking at pictures for The Strain, I was like, oh God.
Oh,
I didn't know vampires could do that. I don't like it. These are not vampires I want to hang out with.
No.
They're not my nice sparkly vampires.
I want to hang out with Dr. Obama.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Edward over those guys.
Intestines coming up. Oh, no.
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 That was like a feeding flu. It wasn't really very intense.
Yeah, no, it's still bad. It's still bad. Diane.
Yeah, an ostomy is still an ostomy. I don't care what you call it.
I read the books. It's really horrible.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Charity. It's really horrible.
No.
Charity, do you feel like with the hardcore horror ones you mentioned that there's this more social commentary, more reaction to greater forces, and the monster is sort of acting as a metaphor for that thing?
Yes.
But like, do you feel like there is some sort of quality with the hardcore horror where it also gives them permission to subvert some of the classic tropes of vampires? Because they're usually not like the classic monsters at all.
They're almost never the classic vampires because people would be offended if you said this is a classic vampire and then they have weird stomas coming out of their mouth to eat people. It's just, you can't do it.
No.
But you can use it as a
No.
social commentary about the body horrors of dealing with a plague that no one knows how to deal with. And this was written far before the plagues that we've dealt with recently. But they're still relevant, which is why they're still popular. Same thing goes for, the one on the airplane, their TV show. I can't remember the name of it right now. My brain has left me.
Oh, is that the one on where the mom is on the airplane and
Yes.
gets turned while she's on the airplane?
Yes, so one person gets turned on the airplane, and then it spreads like a horrific virus. Well,
They did that in the spring.
Okay. Yeah, but this is a separate movie.
yeah,
that's
it's like on FX or something.
yeah.
It's not very well produced, but it was a fun little watch if you like that sort of thing. But like even with all the body horror stuff, when Twilight came out, everything was pretty and glittery and awesome, and there were cute, wonderful vampires. But then you watch something like Renfield, objectively hilarious.
Hysterical.
Creepy faces, unnerving teeth, weird ears. The weird ears get me. The little flanges on the ears. Why are there flanges on the ears?
You can tell which one's a vampire.
That would just freaks me out.
Even before they open their mouth and go,
I have a thing about that, and I'm okay with that.
I think the movie was called Blood Red Sky,
I think you're right.
Yes.
where the mom was on the plane.
Yes,
She was
that's-
like
Yes,
sick.
because we did not know it was going to be a vampire movie when we watched it.
It was really good. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but that's where it was. It's a German horror movie.
oh, these Germans have some good movies out there.
Yes,
And
they
was
do.
seen them.
Very scary.
Don't get up if you're sick.
So we have a romantic vampires, of course, and we're all going to talk a little bit about the romantic vampires because clearly we all love our vampires and have a little romance with the genre and a romance with the fiction. But sometimes you do want to date the vampire. It's maybe a bad choice. Maybe it's not good for you, but maybe it's great for your beauty routine. Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it's the best long-term investment
Hey.
strategy you could come up with. What's better than
Discovering
a rock?
witches was a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen,
Just in the book. I didn't watch the movie.
if I get with, Catherine Deneuve from The Hunger,
You're
I'm-
okay with that? Ooh.
I mean, I just need a moment to think about that. But like,
Tom Hiddleston and
if I
only
were to
left
do
lovers
that,
left alive.
like, I wouldn't need to worry about my investments. She's clearly got it handled. So nice. So nice.
When you were talking about in Carmilla the vampires being gay, sometimes they're kind of gay. I'm like, can you imagine living forever and being straight? Like,
Which might be part of the horror trope of it.
Right, that's the horror part.
Okay, you should at least be, if you're gonna be a vampire, you should be at least bi.
Yes.
Because why would you limit yourself?
Why
You have
choose?
eternity.
there's no reason that someone who's living forever is not pansexual. There's no reason.
Oh my gosh,
So
can you imagine?
I can't imagine.
I'm 500 and I've only ever had vanilla ice cream.
That doesn't fly.
Mhm.
Realistically, come on.
At least have the.
We have authors in this
mint
room.
chocolate
Would you
chip.
think that would happen? No.
To quote Lord Draco.
Yes.
Roquefort has a pompous ass that has every right to be pompous.
Exactly. Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Sometimes you just go both ways when you live long enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, you
Right.
probably learned some
You
things,
sample things.
right? Yeah. So, all right. So going down the list of all of us, who is your favorite, like, romantic? The vampire, or let me rephrase this. Who is the vampire you would go out on a date with? Oh, you're gonna make me start. Oh, okay. Me?
Down the line.
Oh gosh, I like to make you all answer, and then I'm like coming in at the end.
And Ashley and I are like,
Oh my god. So honestly, when I was a young sprightly creature, I absolutely would have gotten off with one of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like probably Spike, because I'm definitely that bitch. But these days, if you've seen the Discovery of Witches, there's a delightful lady vampire who is in her chateau in France, and she's bereaved. She's a widow. And I would love to help out Vampire Mom.
Comfort her.
I would like to comfort her. She just seems so lonely. And also, her dead husband was very fine, and I'm sure he taught her some things, but I could teach her some other things. So,
Good girl.
yeah, no, it's great though. I love Discovery of Witches. It is kind of got some classic vampire vibes for the vampires, but it's very much like we're nice vampires most of the time, and then we're gonna eat a whole fucking deer raw. Okay,
As one does.
that's what does.
I'm not into it.
No,
From the
also
Midwest,
was
that's-
not into it.
No.
So this was, what vampire would we date?
Yeah,
Well, there was a point whenever I would definitely say Spike, and sometimes even now I would say Spike. I also feel like there's times whenever like, oh shit, might have just blanked. I think there was actually a point whenever I was thinking like, what about Michael from Lost Boys? He seems
Yeah.
scary and fun.
yeah.
But then I was like, no, that's a little too scary.
Okay. To be fair, Lost Boys is 100% the horniest of all vampire movies because of the sax player.
But also like, but also
Yeah,
like,
but there was no
I feel
horns.
like
I
Pam
like the
from True
horns.
Blood would be a nice girlfriend.
Oh,
As long as you're cool, she won't rip your throat out.
Yeah.
She might even let you break up with her.
Oh, Pam is a great choice. I love Pam. I love Pam. Pam does not get enough love.
I also don't see vampires living forever and not being polyamorous, so I'm gonna pick more than one.
Good girl.
So
Yes.
Tilda Swinton and Only Lovers Left Alive.
Oh God.
yes.
Just because Tilda Swinton, and I was like, oh, she's a vampire, perfect. She just seems so like whimsical, I guess. I don't know. I love her. Also Nandor, the Relentless. He is the most lovable himbo.
Yes.
Love him. He's so fun. So him. Also, when you brought up True Blood, I was like Eric Northman.
Yes.
And Pam.
Oh my god.
And Pam.
That's a valid choice.
Yeah. So
And you leave
that's-
it, Bill.
Picnic basket full of vampires.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll stop at 4. I don't want to be greedy. I'll stop at 4. But that, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, giant cuddle puddle, how much blood did you have left?
Starts with an N.
But it would be worth it. So yeah.
That's what the IV is for, Diana.
Right.
There are things you can
Iron supplements, very important.
Yes.
Yes.
Evie, what vampire would you date?
Okay,
Or
really.
your picnic basket of vampires.
Actually, I'm pretty much, vampires are kind of not my physical attraction, my sexual attraction there. But I would go for somebody like Nadja because
I love Nadja.
she's a big dork.
She's so strong.
She is strong, but she's also kind of a dork, and she's hanging out with these dorks, and she's good with that. And that would be, she'd fit right in with my people,
Yeah.
and that's kind of important for me. Yeah,
I love that. Also, she's got great fucking hair.
she does. She does. She does,
Mhm.
and she turns into fabulous bats,
Yes.
which that's important. If
Very
somebody walks in on you, she can just take off. I don't know what that was. I'm just here naked. It's all good. Just me by myself with the bats. As one does.
And there wouldn't be many mosquitoes around.
This isn't what it looks like.
No mosquitoes. No mosquitoes, people. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Mosquitoes are my least favorite bloodsuckers.
Charity, who's your vampire paramour or basket full of vampires?
Okay, Underworld.
Oh,
Yeah.
I really, really like Kate Beckinsale in Underworld.
yeah.
I would like to change
Wonderful,
my
beautiful.
answer.
I hate what they did. A pregnancy trope that just annoyed the crap out of me, but whatever.
It was like going around. Every character on every show had to get pregnant.
I hate it.
Yeah.
It was a couple years where everybody was getting pregnant.
Gross.
Like,
First two underworlds and the only underworld.
Thank
There
you.
were no more.
Thank you.
You know, yeah.
So, Kate Beckinsale, especially in that cool vital leather
Mm.
suit. Oh, so good.
Okay.
With a long
I
coat.
tapped
But
Yes. Oh my God.
we need to have a polyamorous household because I'm going to have Louis from Interview to Vampire
Oh,
because
fuck
someone needs to
yeah.
cook and clean. And that way we can have an excuse to have a therapist on staff. Because my God, name a vampire who doesn't need therapy. You can't.
Just like people, they're just people first.
Exactly.
Right? And we're all about mental health.
Well, and another problem for vampires is it's so damn hard to get a therapist who will work with you. Like the hours are really hard.
After hours, hello.
And then they're like, I'm sorry, like you have some very bad boundaries and some toxic behaviors. And the vampire's like, it's how I live, man. It's like, I'm just living my life.
My unlife.
Yeah. Like in Renfield. He got better because of group therapy.
Oh my God. So there's like a lot to plumb with the romantic tropes and the romance of vampires. And like you mentioned that you didn't know where like the Sookie Stackhouse books were always shelved. Was it romance or was it mystery? I found them in the urban fantasy section. It was like Jim Butcher, Laurel K. Hamilton, and Charlene Harris. And I'm like, my marriage is not working. Let me just download all of these into myself.
But Laurel K. Hamilton is loosely based vampires, werewolves, monsters, cool, definitely spicy, very good. There's so many of them. And yes, I've read them all.
So many.
But I've also read everything by Charlene Harris too, because I mean,
Yeah.
obviously.
She's great.
Completionist.
But there's this whole thing that, especially in like the late 90s and the early 2000s, that urban fantasy went from like being about Celtic folklore and fairies and like magic shit in the Underhill and the, everything.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was vampires, werewolves, and getting it on. And like,
Yeah.
With everything.
Which I'm okay with
Vampires,
that.
witches, werewolves, but they're all in a modern day setting.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a weird shift.
it was a really weird shift, but it really like, you have the two things happen. You get like paranormal romance, which is basically
Yes.
urban fantasy with way more sex.
Yes.
And then there's urban fantasy where they're like, well, we might have sex, maybe, off the page, angrily, or we'll hint about it heavily. And I'm like, or you could just, I don't know, fuck. But like,
You guys, when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and all the ladies in my office were like, oh, 50 Shades of Grey.
Like, oh, honey.
You guys, it's so flat.
Okay. You want spicy? Here's some spicy.
yes.
Yeah.
That's their gateway.
But I do feel like that was a period in which we were really embracing a lot of this romantic qualities with vampires. And one of the things I love about this moment in time, because I love comedy, is how much we're starting to see more comic pieces about vampires. Because I love them, and anything I really love, I also want to be able to laugh about in like, I'm not gonna say in a kind way, but in a way where I'm not like denigrating the topic. I'm not like punching down on vampire fiction. I still really love vampires. But shit, man, this dude who's like glows in the sunlight with glitter and has been alive for hundreds of years is like, I want to go to high school.
Again and again and again.
You're old. It's like, it's comedy, man. I also, if you love it, I mean, no shame. I do not want to shame, Twilight fans, because I think there is a lot of value there. But
It's a good
I think
starting
that there
point.
is this fundamental piece of the vampire story where if you look at it too hard for just too long, you're like, this is absurd. How can you not make jokes about it? And like, we've mentioned Renfield, the movie, a few times already. And if you haven't seen it, Nicolas
so much
Cage,
fun.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, he's like chewing the scenery so fucking hard.
It's
like
beautiful.
Unleash and Unleash Nicolas Cage is glorious.
It is
He
a
just
beautiful
put his
thing.
whole soul into it.
It's just
Yes.
Yes, and he was brilliant. He was really good.
The past 5 years or so, he's like, I don't give a fuck. And he's just doing so many unhinged movies, and I love every single one of them. But him and
Oh, that
Yes.
was great.
that's the background on my monitors at work, is the two of them looking at each other. Yeah. The unfathomable weight of something talent, something. Yeah. Uh-huh. It's so good. Unbearable weight of massive talent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. He was wonderful as Dracula
Yeah.
in Renfield. It was so good.
Yeah, what I really loved about Renfield was the group therapy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because, okay, we've seen so many shows where they're talking about, well, this is a toxic relationship, and how do you stop giving into these narcissists? You need to take back your power. And it's like, from the point of view of a familiar, it's hysterical.
It really was.
And like the whole time they're doing the group therapy, of course, no one knows in the group that Renfield is with a vampire. And so they're just like giving him very reasonable advice and very supportive, but they're also like, he's kind of weird. And then he starts really talking about his person he's with, and they're like, oh yeah, of course he's an emotional vampire. And he's like, no. For reals though. So I don't know, you do not need to out yourselves, but I have done group therapy, and I was like, oh my God.
The accuracy was
Oh, it was so good.
It was beautiful.
It was
It was
really-
so beautifully done, and so they were honest with that portrayal. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was
Somebody's
good.
talking about Dark Shadows.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I was going to say
That
the,
was my gateway. Barnabas Collins.
oh, cool.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
I watched
watched that one. I did watch that one at one point. The old one.
There have been 3 iterations of that one.
I watched like I watched a little bit of the black and white one, and then I watched one that had like his name, but it was like in the 80s or 90s.
It was in the 90s. It was like in the early 90s because I was like in late middle school, I think. And my best friend at the time, hi Terry, we used to go to my grandmother's house and we'd be like, we have to watch Dark Shadows. We love it. And then we were really depressed when it only got like 1 season. We were like, what the fuck? Like, this is such a weird place to leave this.
Sarah was really strange.
Was that the Johnny Depp one or was that another one? That was a different one.
It was like a
was like a
TV
weekly
series that they just didn't renew another season. So we only got 1 season. When the love interest had been like swapped with her past version. And I'm like, you can't leave us there. It's terrible. But the Johnny Depp version is totally a comedy. I'm sorry. It's absolutely a comedy.
Was the other one not?
No.
No.
It was very
No, the
serious.
other one was a very serious
It was
drama.
basically a vampire soap opera.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
great.
Aired in prime time. It was the best.
Yeah.
And in the late 90s, it aired right before the Snorks.
And what are so like? What are some of your favorite vampires or favorite stories?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Love it first bite.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, yes, George Hamilton.
That was fun.
Yes.
I think I've seen that.
So good.
Well, I'm gonna name the vampire tapestry, Susie McKee Charness.
Ooh.
I know why I'm a vampire. Why are you?
Okay, fair. Fair. Okay, so what do we all think about what we do in the shadows?
Yay!
What we do in the
I was gonna say we were talking about like familiars and their vampires and the Guillermo and
I love
Nandor.
Guillermo. He's such a
I love
nudge.
Guillermo so
He is
much.
such a nudge.
Yeah.
I love Gizmo.
Gizmo. I love Gizmo.
And he just really wants to be made a vampire so he can be like Antonio Banderas.
One of the things I love about that character, and like, I liked the movie very much, and
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was just a genius piece of comedy. But like, the TV show is able to like play with some of these themes to a great extent, and it just like really propels the comedy, which I absolutely love. But Guillermo is a perfect little cinnamon roll. And if anyone comes for him, they will have to come to me. Because he like absolutely is the best foil for all of that nonsense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay, but
He can
Nando is
definitely,
fabulous. Nando is fabulous. I love him.
handle himself based
Deeply.
on what I've seen the last bit of the last couple seasons is Guillermo accidentally being a vampire slayer. It's like,
It's so good.
yeah.
Yes, so good.
It's just hysterical.
Yeah.
Okay, the whole scene with the Baron dying.
That was spoilers.
It was so beautiful. I'm actually called. I'm not actually Lord. I'm Baron. It's a joke because I don't have any genitals.
Oh God, that's right. Oh my God, it's such a great
Doug Jones.
Doug
Jones
Jones.
Best.
It was epic. It was epic, and I loved it, and it was good.
I think what's also really funny too is like going back a little bit to when we talked about how like vampires can be kind of gay and all that is like the scene whenever they bring up the Baron and you have like the 2 separate interview things with like Nadja and Laszlo and they're both talking about this wild time in the like, hundreds of years ago that they had with the Baron and oh, I wonder if he remembers me kind of thing.
We were lovers for a
And, like,
time.
Neither one it's not really clear, at least it wasn't to me, like if they really knew that the other one had a hookup with the Baron.
No, it really felt like they didn't know that
Right.
they
And
each
so-
had a hookup with the
And they
Baron.
were trying to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
It was
But yeah, he has no genitals, but he can do some amazing things.
And I love when Laszlo it's Nandor that puts the cone on his head because he's like, I drank a person who had been on drugs and now I'm a wizard. And, and that brings up a really interesting question. Do you think if vampires drink someone's blood who is inebriated, do you think that they are affected by it, or do you think their vampire blood burns it out?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on who's writing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came up in Buffy too.
If they go to a rave,
Woodstock. Like, I went for an end.
Yeah.
yeah, see?
So good.
Interview with the Vampire, they did it in,
Almost everything they've,
yeah, they
everything.
always,
they get affected by the blood,
yeah.
which is why most of the propaganda, in my opinion, is just anti-Italian. No garlic, no sunlight, you gotta be swarthy. Everything about it is very, you won't be dating Mario if you're a vampire, because it's gonna have garlic soaked spaghetti. And that's just right out.
Well, so we haven't talked about one of our favorite authors who, she's not strictly speaking just vampire fiction, but Gail Carriger writes her wonderful Parasol Protectorate books. And there's this whole bit where the main character ends up in Italy for reasons, and she falls in love with pesto. And she can't have pesto at home because it has too much garlic in it. And when she becomes obsessed with it, and her husband
And
is
basil.
and basil, right? And her husband is like, "What are you doing? What are you eating? You cannot have this stuff. You can't bring this around all of us supernaturals, right? Too much garlic." And I'm just like, I love this idea that pesto was the danger.
It's got garlic and basil.
Yeah.
Werewolves and vampires.
No, it's a twofer, and it's delicious.
Yes.
Danger sauce.
I
So
hate it.
speaking of dangerous, oh my God, no, pesto is danger sauce.
Danger sauce.
No,
Oh, now it's even more delicious. But speaking of comedy and vampires, I do have to say, like, if you haven't read Gail's work, the Parasol Protectorate books are a wonderful example of steampunk. But they also have all this like comedy gold with the vampires and the werewolves and everything. So it's very charming.
yes. Agreed.
It's a lot of fun.
So we're technically at
Right.
time. And I don't think they're going to immediately kick us out because we're the last panel of the night. But
Probably forgot that we're here.
they absolutely forgot that we were here. But originally we were going to do a little game with all of you called Sexy to Terrifying and create a scale of sexy to terrifying vampires because we've been talking around that. But we cannot do that because there is no projector. So Tanya started this out, but I would love to hear from as many of you as are interested, like who is your, like, you can have a picnic basket of vampires. So
Yeah, as a treat.
as a
Yes.
treat, who's your picnic basket of vampires?
Like, this is a safe place. You can say whatever you like.
Yeah, I mean, I started as,
Matthew Claremont, and I like
oh,
Amon.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like a classy vampire.
Yeah.
Like book or movie or show. Okay,
Movie.
that I can down.
Yeah.
That I'm good with.
Because
Hello.
Yeah.
He's pretty.
That's a sexy, but scary would be the ones in the strain. We were terrifying.
Yeah. Mira.
Oh, definitely Lestat. He just knows how to have a good time. Yeah.
How much cocaine does a vampire have to do before they need a nose job?
There's like the bad boy thing, you know, and it's like there's the Lestat bad boy that, thank you, have a good night.
Have a good night.
Where you're probably not in too much danger, and then there's the strain vampire bad boy. It's like, no, you're in danger. You're in danger.
Anyone else? I mean, I'll call on you like we're in class, or you could just. Yeah.
There we go.
Sonia from Underworld Rising Lycans.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Third from Dracula Untold.
Oh.
That one. I like that one. That one. I'm with you on that. I got you.
Jerry from Fright Night. Either one. Both Jerry's.
We actually have
No, both. Jerry too.
Not like the original one, but like also the new one.
Yeah. He is
The Jerry's. David from Lost Boys.
Aw, nice.
And then this is a weird cut, but Yola's from Legendary Journey, from Hercules Legendary Journeys.
Oh my
There
God.
was an episode.
Oh yeah, he
of
it's
this
like 2
little boy,
episodes. He was yeah.
and he gets
Oh,
bit in
I
the
forgot
episode.
about
He's a
that.
vampire, but then Hercules is able to do his thing and save the day. But there's a great joke because Yola's had died like 5 other times previously in the show. So he's like, "Am I dead again?" Again? And he's like, "I'll fix it."
Hercules
Great.
walked so Supernatural could run. How many times can you die?
Yeah. Yeah. So Yola's is another one.
I love that.
He's technically a vampire for like,
Long enough to count.
long enough to count.
Absolutely.
He was there, he did the thing, and he almost actually bit Hercules at one point. He was like, he was going for his neck, and Hercules was like,
Alas, Kevin Sorbo survived.
The tragedy of it all.
Oh,
no.
That's a great picnic basket of
A boys and one girl,
Everyone did.
because reasons.
right?
Yes.
It's a nice
'Cause-
little.
That outfit,
Mhm.
girl.
Anyone? Any?
Can I say
Yes.
vampire
I'm-
Yeah, Vampire Willow is a completely valid choice.
100%.
There's only one for me that's Eric Northman.
Oh
Yes.
my
Eric
gosh.
Northman is a pretty good one.
Okay, with the
Very good
long
one.
hair or the short hair?
Short hair.
Short hair? Okay, I'll take the long hair one. You can have the short hair one.
Can I just say,
Oh.
Oh, you guys leave?
Make sure it
Okay,
Make sure it goes all the way, you got it, right?
we can do that.
You will not stay here tonight.
We can do that. Thank you so
you.
much.
No, that's all I No, because I'm gonna get out of here, so.
Run like
Oh, yeah,
that.
run like that. Don't look back, you'll turn into a pillar of salt.
Right?
Something blood.
Yes.
One doesn't make good fillers, I tried.
So one of the things about the Sookie Stackhouse books and also about the show that I will always be very, very disappointed in is that she did not stay with Eric. Because I'm sorry, I feel like Eric was the one who treated her kind of
Like
the
a human
best.
being? Like an actual person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Not a
Eric
Confederate?
can be weird and conflicted and want to murder people on my behalf.
That's fine.
I'll probably date Pam, but if Eric's interested, I'll go out with both of them. I'm omnivorous. Any other favorite vampires? Verity.
I can only think of one person. I really agree with that. I think that would be really fun.
She'd be a lot of fun, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
As long as your name's not Jeff.
yeah. Oh, Gregory.
Jeff. Oh, Chief? Having S's in there and shit.
So good. Did you have a picnic basket of vampires?
No, mine's completely different. I was thinking of the whole National Geographic idea of vampires. You start out with the bats, the actual vampire bats, and then you go to the omnivorous insect-eating ones. And then people are bashing on them to the point they're becoming extinct because people are bashing on them. Then you get the infamous sky puppies.
Oh.
Yeah, and then they get redeemed. And then you talked about the strain. You said stoma. I was like, okay, you've gone from bats to starfish. And I'm thinking, I was like, okay, but they can all relate to animals. And I heard something really recently that I thought was amazing. Somebody talked about the fact that the reason that vampires have issues with mirrors is originally mirrors were silver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Same thing with photography and film. Yeah.
Right?
I'm still in the middle of the book, Amish Vampires in Space.
And our
If you have
vampires,
not read
like,
Amish Vampires in Space.
What?
It is the funniest written.
I bought it, I had to.
Dead.
I was
It
forced
is
almost at
a series.
gunpoint to buy
There,
it.
Amish Vampires in Space, Amish Zombies in Space, and Amish Werewolves in Space. And it is written to parody
Beautiful.
the Christian romance genre. but also the triteness of the sci-fi stuff that was coming out that year, which was a lot of crap. So this author, Carrie Neitz, I think. Yeah. So it is written deadpan, dead ass. It is written like a serious novel. This is David Brin level, serious, hard sci-fi novel about Amish vampires in space. And there's a the Nosferatu creature. Oh my God, it's so dumb and so good. And I've read it at least 6 times.
Tanya, you were also going to share a little bit.
Oh, the thing with the mirrors, when I saw that meme going around, it made me kind of think, so like, are there vampires now seeing themselves for the first time and going, oh my God, has my hair always looked like that?
No, that's why they always just slip it back. You don't have to worry about it. Just slip.
And one more question for you guys
It stops
all.
growing, you're undead.
Do you think their teeth are little straws, or do they just use it to bite and then they just like lick the blood up?
It depends
Bite
on
and
how
lick the
messy
blood.
they are.
Why are they so messy? Why are they so messy?
Right.
They're Because like
they have
if
hundreds of
they get that thing,
years.
it spurts.
Mhm.
But they just like they'll bite a wrist, okay?
Chug it like a man. Don't make a mess. You're
This is
wasting food.
There are vampires in Ethiopia who are
No, there
They
are
don't
not,
have blood.
because Toto blessed the rains of Africa. Yes, it's true.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
That's a good place to leave it.
That's
Yes.
a good
Yeah.
place to leave it. We're
So
gonna
good.
leave
Just buy it.
with,
Just
messy
buy it. You'll giggle the
vampires.
entire time.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this wonderful, unhinged. Our vampire panel was fucking lit. Thank you so much. We're here all weekend. Tomorrow we're doing a lot of shit. Ashley, what is some of the stuff we're doing
I
tomorrow?
only have one page of my notes here. Okay, so tomorrow we have
11 o'clock is our flag means death.
our flag means death. So if you're into the gay stuff, come to that one. Yes. So
They
our
dress
flag means
well.
death.
It's called, that one is
The
called,
Doctor Who one, is that Sunday?
They Wore Fine
Doctor Who is
Things
Sunday.
Well.
Yes. Let's see. What do we
I think
have
Doctor
here?
Who and the romance one is on Sunday.
Yes.
Both romance
So-
ones.
Tomorrow's also, no, this is all my weird stuff. There's also Welcome to Purgatory in the evening. We're going to be talking about Winona Earp.
When is the Electric Boogaloo?
That's
tomorrow
also
afternoon.
tomorrow. We have
I like 2.
Barbie Part 2, the Kens.
Yeah.
Electric
Just
Boogaloo, Enter the
discussing-
Kens.
Discussing
Ken.
the effects of Ken.
If you look in the schedule, anything that says Roynish Turtle Conservation Society, you will see our lovely faces when you walk into the room.
These are the head honchos of the Roynish Turtle Conservation Society. I am merely an interloper from the temple entourage.
Well, I mean,
I'm a latchkey kid they allowed
We
in.
decided that you were part of the the Tucson delegation of the Roynish Turtle Conservation
That's correct.
Society.
I love to protect those turtles. So, but we will be doing lots of things tomorrow, including cog match, and which is also an 18+ thing in the middle of the afternoon.
What?
it's our 18 and up 2:00 p.m.
It
panel.
is. So please come to that.
And Cog Match does get a little bit
Sometimes we like
naughty.
to leave the lights on, so we're doing it in
You ever seen
daylight.
Match Game on the old
Cog
game
match is
channel?
Very naughty.
Don't make
I
it Cog
recommend
Match.
having a cocktail first.
It's Match Game.
We also have Iron Taylor tomorrow and the fashion
Cog
show.
Cog.
So please
Because
come
we're
to those.
steampunks.
Especially if you like costuming at all, please consider entering the Iron Taylor.
There's gonna be a lot of
We
weird
need
stuff there.
people to enter it because it's gonna be a gay old time,
It's gonna be super
maybe
fun.
literally. So it starts at 4.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It goes for 2 hours. It's 4 to 6, and then 6 to 7 is green room before fashion show, and then the fashion show is at 7. So unless everything
Yes,
lied to me,
'cause
but
some of
that
us need
is
to
the
show off our
schedule as far as I know it. So we will see you guys tomorrow. They've already locked the door, so it's time for you to sleep. Sleep well, take good care. Remember to wash your hands, drink some water, and take your vitamins. And we'll see you deranged and shiny tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
It's fine.